You're unmuted.
Thank you.
Getting after him.
Hey. Right, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is February 13th, 2024, from the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Here.
Janat,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Present.
Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Worsakki.
Here.
All present.
Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve citizens of Benzie County. Ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your son, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Look for approval of the agenda.
So moved. You'll second.
I have a suggestion. I would like to offer, since we've implemented the change of having commissioner reports at the second meeting of the month, I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to have a commissioner comment either before or after public comment. I just know there are times when things are happening in our districts that we want to share, and usually the appropriate place to do that is commissioner reports. And when that's not on the agenda, there's not really a good place to make those comments. So I just offer that for consideration. And if people were in agreement, I would ask that we add that.
I don't have an issue with it.
Makes sense.
Everybody else all right with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you want to add it?
Just a public comment.
Yes, directly after public comment.
And that's just a synopsis, or if there's something out of the norm. Okay.
Yep. Full motion and support, all in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, so moved. Approval and or correction of the minutes from 1/23/24.
I move to approve the minutes of February 23rd as presented.
Second, Cunningham.
Motion and support, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, so moved. Brings us to our first public comment. Is there anybody you'd like to share this morning? Close public comment, commissioner comments. Anybody have anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
Morning. Thank you for public comment and the opportunity to do that. My name is Deb Frisbee, and I'm here on behalf of the HSC. I am the coordinator of Thompsonville Summerfest, and we hadn't had Summerfest for several years after COVID. And the woman who had always organized that decided that she didn't want to do it anymore. So I actually put it on a public page asking people if they wanted to see it come back, and they did. And so I thought that was my cue to try to serve an served area such as Thompsonville and bringing all the critical services that they often don't have a chance to either get to because of transportation needs or whatever that holds them back from getting the services. There's lots of new services that come available to them. And so we do a sort of an expo where we bring all the critical services on a Monday night to Thompsonville to have the people meander through. We give them, we have raffles for the kids. We do a meal for them. And last year, after it hadn't taken place, we had over 400 people. We had a coordination from Benzie bus who was dropping off people, picking up people. It was just a really wonderful event that came together. And so I'm just asking for your support in funding for the Thompsonville Summerfest, because it is a really big deal.
Thank you very much.
Pardon?
June 17th, that's what I.
It
thought
is,
was.
it is. It's always the third Monday in June. It's been that way for several years, so. And I know I've been able to bring some younger community members together. So I'm hoping to keep this going with those actual village people and having them take this over someday too. So I just want to see it keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Deb.
Douglas?
Good morning, Douglas Duran with Lindsay Senior Resources. I bet you guys are wishing you had that timer on me for many years now. So kind of cool. But I am here in support of your decision later today about supporting the Benzie County Human Collaborative Body. As one of the largest nonprofits in Benzie County, this group has been very instrumental in guiding me and my staff for a lot of information assistance to our seniors. Every year we gather between 11,000 and 13,000 phone calls from our seniors, and not counting the walk-ins. And what I learn at these meetings that Sarah facilitates, puts together, is just insurmountable for our seniors of Benzie County. So I am in true support of it. Again, we're one of unique counties that still has a human collaborative body service, and it does help out bring all of us nonprofits together to discuss concerns for actually the whole county of Benzie and its citizens. So please give it some good thought and support of what the good deeds this organization has done. I've been here 10 years and I've been part of that, and I was here before then too. So thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Deb.
Any other public input? One. We'll close public input. Commissioner comment.
Darren, why don't you speak to that poster?
I was gonna read this if you didn't mind, from Mac.
Have at it.
Okay.
I gave him the information. We talked about it before.
Okay.
Michigan Association of Counties, celebrating 125 years, has prepared this, all the counties in the state. It is our pleasure to present to you, your county, a framed copy of the Seals of Michigan Counties poster. This poster was created as part of MAC's 125th anniversary celebration. We hope you and your colleagues agree to display this document in a prominent location in your meeting chambers or elsewhere in your facilities. Your county's stalwart support of MAC and its work is appreciated. Thank you for your ongoing service to our state. Jim Story, Board President, Steve Curry, Executive Director, Michigan Association of Counties.
And if I may add just a couple words on that. MAC is an association of counties. They put out podcasts that update on the whole state, things that are very pertinent for the state of Michigan, different bills that are in committee and everything. And at this meeting, there are over, is it about 30 counties that come and are part of that? and are educated with what our legislatures are bringing forward. So really acting, I'll use the term, they're kind of like a lobby for the counties and have educational pieces for us to look at. And this is in honor of it. It's a wonderful community and has a lot of results. Is there anything you would add to that, Art?
It's 26 counties
That are there? I knew it was about 30 that show. Thank you.
Thank you for that, both of you. Any other commissioner comment? All right, elected officials, department heads, anybody? Judge Mead.
Actually here on the opiate part, so you'll be seeing me again in a few minutes. So, as you're aware, I made the appointment I was required to make. Commissioner Janat just approached me about it, and Commissioner Sauer had spoken to me about it briefly. So the thought process behind the person I appointed. It's Mandy Gray Rainier. Commissioner Janat, Commissioner Roloffs, you're very aware of the Gray family. They're all Wheelock descendants. Oli White, the Kyle Rosa family, the Morse family. Her mother is Ron Mick's sister, which puts her family into the area of my neighborhood. But they're also tied heavily into the city of Frankfurt, which affects another commissioner here. Now let's go to her in-laws, the Rainiers. They're spread all over the county, and her mother-in-law is Aloni. So Commissioner Nye's affected now. I'm sure somehow they dip into your area, Evan, but Tim, I'm sorry, you're left out of this one.
Again.
But her sister is a very well-respected probate attorney in Grand Traverse County, who just happens to be married to Kirk Bruce, who owns Stapleton's, whose brother is the godfather of Pompanos. This girl has connections everywhere. She is the ear to the ground. This is somebody that I've felt more than comfortable appointing because she has those connections to hear the broad thought process of the boots on the ground, this community. Any questions?
Questions?
Thank you for doing it, Jim.
I thought you had a good process.
Thank you.
Yeah, well appreciate it, Judge. Any other department heads, elected officials? All righty. We'll move on to finance. Michelle? Michelle.
Don't have to count much longer anyway.
I'm looking for approval of bills from January 28 through February 12, totaling $716,242.20.
Make that motion.
Is there support?
Support Cunningham.
Thank you. Motion and support. Is there further discussion?
I have just one question, and it's only for clarification for me, Michelle. What is a canine advocate?
It's a dog
Well, I know it's a dog, but
and a person. I think there's a person attached.
So, they're a little different in the sense they're not, a drug dog or a bomb dog. They're more like
emotional
support and
Okay.
support in general,
Court circumstances.
court
and other
circumstances and touchy
stressors.
situations. Yeah, stress support.
Okay, I do remember that being mentioned before in the court. Okay, when I was reading this, I just for clarification, I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, the dog oftentimes sits in the.
Yep, I
in its
understand for
box
comfort and
waits for
security.
Scratches.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And does this mean you only have to do this one more time
Or less.
or less?
Less than one.
We'll see.
I just wanted you all to know I was selected as the executive director of the of the Michigan Association of Land Banks. So retirement lasts for the weekend.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you also for paying attention to all my suggestions and things over the years. I think I'm comfortable leaving in the situation that we're in right now. It feels good. It feels right. It feels organized and goal-oriented, all the things. So that feels good. I'm also pleased with the appointment from the committee for Kelly Long to be appointed county treasurer. I think she will serve well. And I hope that that turns out in the polls. So we're all good. There's an open house planned on March 1 from 1 to 4 in this room. I'd love to see you there.
Thank you. And thank you for everything. We appreciate your commitment to Benzie County. Your institutional knowledge is beyond anybody else that can manage. So your time here has been well worth the county's investment.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
It's good. And I don't live far, so if you have a question,
Better
I'm
be
sure you know
careful.
where I am.
Careful saying. Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
motion carried.
Thank you.
thank you.
Consent calendar. Item A, consider approving amendment to jail services agreement with community mental health.
So with the consent calendar, unless there's something that needs to be pulled by a commissioner, if there's further discussion and question, we can do one motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented. The items on the consent calendar, the chair just noted the jail services agreement for mental health services in the jail, an amendment to that. An LOU with the FOPLC deputies, collective bargaining unit agreement, switching or adding in 12-hour shifts. Consideration of accepting a scrap tire grant, authorizing signature, authorizing an additional credit card for accounts payable operational purposes, and another step 3 grievance process, putting that in my court.
Because I have some questions about these. I'd like to pull 3 of them. A, B, E. Because that's my understanding from what I've read. You're looking for items that you do in normal business all the time. And a lot of these are decided well before they come here. So we don't have an opportunity to ask questions. I can't say I'm real fond of the position we're in on this, but follow what I have to just to ask the question.
You say A, B, and D.
A, B, and D.
Correct. Was there consideration in a motion to authorize item C and E?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Evan?
I'll support.
Rhonda. Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Janai,
Yes.
motion carried.
Next item is items removed from the consent calendar. Item A, consider allocating funds to Benzie County Human Services Collaboration.
Nope, item A would be the jail services agreement.
Mental health
three
jail
together.
services.
I'm sorry.
That the one?
Yep.
Okay, my question on that one. Obviously, where the person that was in charge before had a master's degree and now this is lowered. I'm just curious, did the price get lowered?
So I asked that as well, when this was brought to me by the lieutenant as well as Chip, and I was like, if you're lowering services, lower the price. And how Chip explained it to me is, one, they're not going to lower service. They're actually going to work to enhance service. We haven't had anybody in our jail in many, many months. It's only been via Zoom. This will put a person physically back in our jail. And secondly, we have a set amount that we pay for community mental health. And if this lowers, the other one's just gonna increase, is my understanding. And so, because we have a top tier amount we have to give to community mental health as a county. And then CHIP breaks it down so that some, is specific for, the jail mental health services, because as CHIP has talked about numerous times, we can't serve those folks with the certain Medicaid dollars and those sorts of such. So we give general fund dollars to serve those folks because we can't use the other colored money per se. So if this one goes down, the other one's going up, is my understanding. But what this will do, so a bachelor's level person cannot do fully what a master's level individual can do because of their schooling. However, this person can really act as that step one who has that face-to-face contact with the folks in the jail, really gives them that dialogue, collects that information, and then works with the master's level person to create the plan and create the treatment that then brings it back to those folks within the jail. Right now, that's all being done really primarily via Zoom and phone. And so this will give that face-to-face contact back in our jail, which is what we would really like to see. Master's level clinicians are hard to find, according to CHIP. There's just not a lot of them out there anymore. And so this is a way to bring that service back to where we were at, in a sense, by getting someone in there, because bachelor's level are much easier to find, is my understanding, in that realm.
It's still
I had the same concerns.
it's
as
extremely
Commissioner Miller.
questionable to me.
Yes.
Yeah, and as I look at the change, and I did reach out, I spoke with you and
Mhm.
I spoke with Chip and was directed to the document that he gave us at a previous meeting.
With the
But I
smiley
am
face.
concerned in the contract, the change that's made under BI where it defines the services, a variety of services, including, and then each of those services is crossed out in a, I'm gonna say for watered down version of
Mhm.
services has been put in its place.
Yeah.
Did you get clarification on that? Because it does seem like the level of services is being reduced.
So a bachelor's level clinician cannot do those things that are crossed out. Only a master's level can, based on their schooling. And so because in this agreement, we're committing to a bachelor's level, they cannot provide these other things, but they can work with the master's level through them to provide the treatment plans and those sorts of things. So because this agreement is specific to the bachelor's level, we can't say that a bachelor's level is going to do X, Y, and Z, because they cannot, because of their level of schooling. Only a master's level can do that. So that is why those things were kind of watered down, because that's what a bachelor's level themselves are capable of doing. CHIP is committed, though, that this person's working with the master's level to do those other things. So if this board would like to see maybe a secondary agreement or another section or something like that, the bachelor's level is working with the master's level to provide those enhanced services. It's just that a bachelor's level cannot provide those services alone.
Is there some way to write in there that would accept this as long as you have proof? That's how this is being handled?
We
I
could
just
add that
got-
to the
yeah, I
motion.
just feel like we just got shot down and then we're told if that doesn't work, we're gonna hide it somewhere else.
So
That bothers me too.
in my motion, I specifically write that moving to a bachelor's level clinician in the jail to act as a conduit between the inmate and master's level clinician. So there we are committing in that motion that they're going to be working with a master's level. Lieutenant Smith does receive a report every single month from Central Wellness as to the folks, the touch points and the treatments in the jail. We could provide some of that information to you, that which would kind of spell a lot of that out if you would like. We get them every single month. But in the motion, I did specifically call out the conduit with the master's level. So that's us saying we're approving this because this is happening. And if we find out it's not happening, then we could approach it at that time.
So we can at least put in there with a quarterly report coming from CHIP's organization or these folks.
So we already get a monthly report. We could
They
provide
do get a
that.
monthly report.
Yes, yep. So
They
send.
get a monthly report.
Well, and Lieutenant Smith sends it to myself as well. And so, we could send those to the board if you want. There, I mean, there's no names and such on
No,
there,
that's
so
fine.
it's, high level. But Lieutenant Smith does copy me on those emails from Central Wellness, and so I do see the report every month. So we could provide that or a synopsis quarterly to the board if that's what the board would like. Yes.
I would like that. I don't know about everybody else.
as a summary, I also had a question. It says, I saw the conduit and that was clear to me. I understood that, but how is it handled for time-sensitive action? Like if there is a need, it says here in a timely manner. And I had another question.
So as far as timing goes, sometimes that's hard to predict because it's a matter of what's in front of you.
Correct.
It's my understanding, and the undersheriff can speak a little more to this, but it's my understanding that when there's a true immediate need in the jail, it's all hands on deck. In Central Wellness, Catholic Human Services, everybody's coming, appropriately. And so they're very good about prioritizing, what can wait until morning and what has to happen at 3 a.m. And
Okay.
so to actually give you some definite times, I can't, because it really is case by case as to the need.
No, I'm okay with that. It's just that I saw and I thought we needed to have it action and response, and maybe that was from not understanding the process
Yeah, when there's a
and how
huge
they
need.
evaluate
Yeah,
A, B, C, D, a
Exactly.
priority one or whatever.
sure. And no, it's all hands on deck when the need is there. And you'll recall too, we also have a deputy, social worker deputy, as we've called that person, who has some of that basic training, who can help make that identification to, put them on the scale of immediate need or not. And so that's been very helpful to those in the department as well, is because that person kind of knows some of the basic lingo and some of the basic responses. And so they can help better prioritize the need there as well.
Thank you. That helps with my clarity on it, so.
Um,
Any other questions?
I can make this motion,
Please.
that the Board of Commissioners authorize an amendment to the letter of agreement with Manistee, Benzie Community Mental Health Organizations, also known as Central Wellness, for mental health services with Benzie County Jail, to allow for a bachelor's level
Clinician.
clinician, there we go, in the jail to set a conduit between an inmate and the master's level clinician, and authorizes the chair to sign with minimum quarterly reports to the Board of Commissioners.
Markey will support.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, Gary.
Okay, my only concern there, and I know this is just to go in front of the unions to accept this 12-hour. Sheriff's not here, but the undersheriff is. You see any issues with this? 12-hour shifts are pretty hard on folks. Coffee.
Good morning.
good
We
morning.
buy it for 'em. They do.
I am very comfortable with this, Commissioner Sauer. They are long shifts, but they have been tried and true with other agencies. We have 3 people on each shift, and this is the way to effectively get to 24-hour roll with the least amount of people. With 3 people on each shift, it allows us for one person to be off on each rotation. So it allows for one of those 3 to be off without violating the contract. What the deputies and sergeants gave in return in this is that they are working 84 hours without that additional 4 hours of overtime. So they're working 84 straight time hours instead of 80 straight time and 4 overtime as part of this MOU.
So that's why we're going to the unions to get.
That is correct. We
Yeah.
have to have it to,
Okay.
or we'd have to pay them overtime.
The union has already approved this, so you're the final step.
That was my only question. I hate to pull it for that, but. Okay, thank you. I
All
appreciate
right,
that.
thank you. Any other questions on that?
If I could just follow up, just to drill down a little bit further, acknowledging that I know very little about public safety, but 12-hour shifts, does that put at risk either the deputy or the public because the level of alertness is diminished?
Don't think so. MSP did a study on it many years ago, and I believe it was an Inspector Allen. his worry was the main focus of his study. I think it was for his thesis for his master's. Main focus of his study was sleep deprivation. And there was no significant change in as the result of his study and that performance or safety.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes a letter of agreement with the Michigan Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council Deputies Union. Jeez, which allows for 12-hour shift rotation and moves the sheriff's office closer to 24-hour road patrol and authorizes the chair to sign.
Second. Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item D.
Okay, my only concern here is we have a list of the folks that are allowed to use the credit card. We've cured all the I understand the reasoning behind it, but credit cards make me nervous.
So
Organization.
yeah, so in there you'll see a lined up policy, which was a previously approved policy. It's only been tweaked to account for this accounts payable card. Sorry, IT's on my computer going nuts. So you'll see the list of folks that are on there now. Obviously, you'll note there's 3 sergeant cards. Those are somewhat of a floating card. This accounts payable card would not leave my office and it would only be for accounts payable purposes. So the list that you see really are the folks that are utilizing credit cards for the county. The big reason we're doing this is because we're moving in this world of people only want a credit card payment type or an EFT payment type. And so we're becoming kind of pigeonholed into using our credit cards for some of these transactions. One specifically is Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office is no longer you buy a CD or DVD and put it on your computer. It's all subscription based. Well, monthly for the county, that's almost $3,000. Well, we raised my credit limit to 5,000, so I wasn't having these issues when I sign up the Board of Commissioners and such to have to borrow someone else's card. Well, if we start putting Microsoft on it, we're therefore making that problem that we just fixed. And so we also have some others, like our utilities, for instance. We don't just have one utility account. As you know, there's animal controls in the jails in this building. And the trouble we're having with the utility companies is we've really done everything we can to make it as clear as day for them as to what check is applied to what account. And they're still applying the wrong checks to the wrong accounts. And then animal controls getting a shut off notice. And so what we want to do is be able to use that credit card to pay those individual accounts so we don't have late fees and shut offs and such, so that we can, thank you, so that we can make sure that we're having all those bills paid in a timely manner. So it wouldn't be everything, but it's going to be those ones that have become a difficult problem, or those ones where we're really forced to use the credit card. Check will still be our first go-to thing. It would just be in those times of true need.
We, on consumers
Yes, and DTE.
has flipped out on credit card. They want to charge you extra to use a credit card.
Yeah, and we wouldn't, no.
You're sending them checks and
Mm-hmm.
because I've been through this at home and not happy about it.
Well, we've sent a grouped check with all the accounts numbers. That didn't work. We've sent individual checks with all the account numbers listed on each check. That didn't work. We sent them in separate envelopes. We've sent them in all one envelope. Every time it doesn't work. And so that's the issue that we're having.
Katie, I want to be careful about this, doing any micromanaging, but how come we don't just do automatic debits on utility bills?
So that's actually a much more cumbersome process than you realize. So every time there's an EFT transaction, yes, it's easy in the sense they pull that EFT, but the EFT process in BS&A is an individual process for each EFT transaction. So that accounts payable process that we go through for one set of paper checks, it's a separate process for all the different EFTs. We have to go in and do individual transactions for the EFTs. So what makes sense is you put it on a credit card, which is just one transaction, and then we do one EFT transaction to pay the credit card.
Okay.
Mhm.
And just
It
a
streamlines it a little bit.
just a follow-up question. I've yet to go through the process of the AP approvals. But the commissioners that are doing the AP approvals, do they look at the credit card statement also?
Yeah, that's usually about 70 pages in there. And you can go through and you can look at, so Rose has come up with this really slick, cover page where you list out all the individual transactions with what applies to which GL line. And then behind that cover page is all the different receipts and invoices. And then there's the next card's credit top page with all the things. And then there's a total one on top, which brings them all together.
So they're seeing what transactions went through.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
How many do we have altogether? You say 100 and what?
120.
Under 20.
It sounded like 120.
You didn't get your card, Gary?
And I don't want my card. Didn't
So
want
Katie,
it
you
to-
and I talked prior to the meeting too, and at some point, you're gonna come back to the commissioners with policy or some sort of general, because we know these credit cards generate rewards
Mm.
and perks.
Mm.
So, the use of those will have to be determined at
Yes.
a point in time as well.
Yeah, so we have moved to JP Morgan recently, which you are all aware, and there is rewards on those credit cards. So we're coming up with ideas to present to the board as to how to best utilize those rewards. Is it a credit on the account? Is it some sort of employee wellness program or, something like that? So until this board gives us that direction, none of those rewards would be used.
And they don't expire.
Mm-mm.
Guess we beat it enough. I move that the Board of Commissioners amends the credit card policy to include an additional credit card for accounts payable in the credit card limit not to exceed $20,000.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
motion carried.
And thank you for allowing me to pull these and discuss them.
You had
You
the
bet.
same questions, so. I
Well,
appreciate you pulling
I
them.
just feel that because these decisions are made, not everybody gets their input, so thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item A under old business. Consider allocating funds to Benson County Human Services Collaboration.
Just 1 second, switching computers around here.
Katie, while you're doing that, Karen, you sit on that Human Services Collaborative.
Yes, I do.
What's your opinion about the effectiveness of it?
I thank you for asking. I appreciate that. One thing, Manistee has the same type of collaborative and they support it. But I do sit on that and like Mr. Duran said, it has so much information that brings back so many, it's a collaborative, so many different sources and you're in one spot to get all that information. To me, it's invaluable for us. And they're updating their resource guide, so it's invaluable for people who are in the most need. It really educates us as a collaborative, and then we reach out to the communities that need it. So for me, it's a great advocate entity and very, very resourceful on how they use the information and disseminate that. So, and the leadership, Sarah May for a facilitator is spot on with if I have a question, and I'm sure it's the same with the others that are part of the collaborative, that she gets back to them right away. And, it is help and responsive to really our most vulnerable and people who maybe don't understand the system. And then for others too, if So for me, it's very valuable.
And the follow-up question, Katie, that $3,000, how does that compare to what the other members are paying? Do you know?
It's my understanding that what other members are paying are kind of across the board. Some members are paying upwards of $6,000. Some are paying a lot less, around a couple $100. Organizations that you could, I guess, say are around our size, like the health department and such, as my understanding is paying $3,000, whereas Central Wellness is paying $6,000. Manistee County to theirs chose to pay $3,000.
So that's how we arrived at the 3,000.
If I could, please.
Please.
I had the privilege of serving on that committee for a couple of years. After Roger Griner left, and for as many people as they touch and as many services that are provided, I think it's in the county's best interest to stay involved, and you hit it, the nail right on the head. Sarah is absolutely wonderful in her position there.
The spirit of healthy debate. The $3,000 to support facilitation of 12 meetings a year, because that's essentially what this money is going for. The question I would ask is, many of these entities that are listed as supporters or members already receive taxpayer, county funding for appropriations and millage funding. So to ask the taxpayers to subsidize this with another $3,000 when quite a bit of money is already going to these entities for them to support themselves professionally, to know what resources are being offered, cross services, things like that, to prevent duplication, which is excellent. I don't argue that understanding what each entity offers is important, so there's no duplication and being able to get resources to the community. I am only questioning whether taxpayer funding needs to be added to what's already being provided in those ways.
I appreciate that. And I understand what you're saying about duplication, but probably several of us anyways on the board here are part of collaboratives. And you see what the collaboration does with all those professionals coming in. So I don't see it as a duplication at all.
No, you misunderstand me. I was saying what the collaboration does in making sure that people who offer resources aren't duplicating their resources. I'm just saying that on the funding side of it, there are already appropriations made to many of these entities that are involved, as well as millages, which are voted on, and taxpayer funding provided that way. So that's the only element that gives me pause. I don't question whether it's a valuable. I think, every profession should have a way to interact and communicate and understand what resources are being offered within their profession. And I think that's what the Human Services Collaboration does. What is Central Wellness doing? What is the Health Board doing? What is, Women's Resource? All these things coming together to make sure that they're serving the community well. So I just want to be convinced that it's necessary for us to allocate more taxpayer dollars, and because the Human Collaborative doesn't provide services per se. It's a meeting. It's a meeting once a month of all the members.
It educates.
Right.
Yeah, it educates and connects people. And I think the resources, from my understanding, it's so we can make sure that our facilitator and whatever other costs come with the collaboration, that's what the financial support is for, to make sure we can still pay those people to coordinate.
What, if any, activity happens between meetings?
It depends on what is brought up. And I know probably Sarah will have things to talk about when she presents also, or if she is going to present. But it depends on what it is that was brought up as an issue. So coordinating behind the scenes, connecting people. I know they've been working on updating the resource guide, so you're in a one spot. And all the people that are part of, or all the agencies that are part of the collaborative have that information. So it's not just one person that has that information. You've made this web of network, and that's because of the collaboration, if that clarifies. So it depends.
Comment to the chair. I don't see where Sarah is scheduled to speak on this
I
subject.
don't either.
Could we ask her to step forward for a moment?
Would you mind, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, thanks for being here. I'm gonna put the same question to you. Is there activities that take place between meetings?
Yes, so we have, like Rhonda said, we have the one monthly meeting that everyone comes together, but then we also have individual work groups. And so in between those meetings, we have work groups that are identified for certain issues. So one is our early childhood. So that's working on planning like an early childhood resource fair that will be coming up in April. And that is all like 0 to 6 agencies that work with that population coming together to then share all the resources that are in the community. They also do a lot of work with trying to address some issues with our childcare and other general issues that younger families are dealing with. We also are very connected with the Benzie Cares for Kids. That is our Child Abuse Prevention Council. So that meets on a quarterly basis throughout the year, and that gives support to direct family support, like through our baby pantries and other ways to protect for safe sleep, as well as camperships. So they give scholarships to youth so they can attend different camps throughout the summer. And then our other major work group is the Family Services Work Group, and that meets monthly, and that is for any agency that is working with families, so Central Wellness, Health Department, Bacon. If they don't know what resource to help a family with, they can come to that group. They are like the navigators, and they can ask, like, where would you recommend I receive help for this family, or how should I deal with this case? It can go by case basis. That is crucial to help support those workers to have that connection together. And so they meet every month as well.
And it looks like you have about 25 members in the collaborative.
There's more than that, but it varies with activity. Some are, they receive on the email list, but they don't, they're not actively participating, coming every month.
I'm just looking at the list that was provided to us.
Mhm.
And it looks like of the 25, about 7 of them receive funding directly from the county. So I'm going to make the observation that if we're going to have somebody that sits on the board that has a voice, I believe that we need to be a full partner. And with that, I would move that the board authorizes a $3,000 contribution to the Human Services Collaborative with funds available from the general fund contingency.
And I would support.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Gary?
I think I gave you guys a letter, Colonel Crockett, about taxpayer funds and our responsibility to the taxpayer. Well, where these funds go, we can't help everybody. And our intention is not to help everybody. It's the best for the community. I look at this and I see DHHS on this list. I see Central Wellness. I see the Health Department. These are all organizations that should be doing their job to begin with. And it's not that I'm against what's going on. I'm against us funding it because it's, my neighbor may never use it, may never require to use it. I don't, it's available, sure. But everything that I see on there is available now. Community Connection. DHHS has an organization that's sitting down in our building that supposedly helps people. I have questions about that too, but that's a lot of taxpayer funds going there. One of the most well-funded organizations in the state. So, I just want the commissioners to weigh in their thoughts. That we're appropriating money that does not belong to us, so that's my 2 cents.
I'm sorry, someone else wants to speak?
Yes, I was just going to say thank you for that, Commissioner Sauer, but this is a collaborative. So now they are all communicating with one another. And that does seem to be a weakness sometimes. Yes, you have a lot of separate entities that are fulfilling a need or whatever their mission is. But the collaborative, when you get people together in a room and all talking and sharing, that's where you see the communication, and that's the real need and what this is fulfilling. I mean, I can think of a lot of different instances, you know, both nationally and everything, where if you keep things in silos, yes, you're all doing what you're supposed to be doing, but if you're not coordinating and communicating, then you're not fulfilling the greatest need that you can. And that's what this collaborative does. So because of the communication, I'm not saying that the agencies aren't doing their job, but to be in the same room or on the same screen, if you're Zooming, that makes a huge difference with action.
Can you name start with about 4 or 5 success stories? Doesn't involve just one individual. That involves a community or it involves a group of people. I know what the Munson Medical Center has done. When you go on there to fill out or go for any appointments, they throw you into the health department's community connections program. Do you have issues here? Do you have issues there? People, this country are self-sustaining and they take care of themselves. And for some reason, we seem to be losing that focus. And relying on government to do stuff is a very big concern of mine. So I will drop it there.
Thank you.
The last piece I'm going to add then, following up on what Karen said, is Gary, in the last 7+ years, you've heard me say frequently about collaboration and duplication, which I'm totally against if people aren't collaborating together. This is an example where they do collaborate, and each one of them brings a little something different to the table. And we aren't going to take the time today to talk about success stories for each one, but I suspect that if I called on each one of the executive directors, they'd be more than anxious to tell us about their success stories.
Art, do you worry at all about the precedent that it's setting with different groups of organizations, having the county be the conduit for them talking to each other? If you do it for this group, you know, and facilitate them financially being able to professionally share their ideas, you set a precedent for other groups. Why isn't the county supporting all the childcare institutions talking to each other so they know what they provide? I don't know. It just it concerns me a little bit, and I'm not completely decided. I mean, I do see on the list that we have our Benzie County Sheriff's Department, 19th Circuit Youth Services. I see our probation is here. So that lends me to believe that perhaps that's our pay-in to be part of this group, is to cover the costs of these folks participating. But I do get concerned with what Gary's talking about. You know, if we set this precedent today, are there other collaborations that we are going to have to support based on the decision we make today?
Well, I guess my response to that, Rhonda, would be that we're not running this collaborative. We're just simply a member of it. I would be anytime we have a member of this board sitting on another board that they're assigned to, not that they just volunteer, but they assign to, I think that we got to be all in. And if we're one of just a few people that aren't acting as a full member of this, then shame on us. Will this open the door to other people coming to us? Yes, but the circumstances could be different, or I will feel differently about it too.
Sure.
This one, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's it's on our list of things that we need to participate in. The chair makes that assignment every year. So the commissioner's asked to sit there and we're sitting there without being a full member. I don't think that's right.
And the people that, or the groups that are on the list are on this list and in this collaborative. I mean, we have childcare on this group. They're not going to have a separate childcare list come to us. Then that would be duplication. But they all reside as a member on this group. So, and the
Eric, can you say that one
communication
more
is,
time? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
You may have mentioned this the last time you were here, so I apologize for asking again, but the list of people that participate in the collaboration, they're not required to pay dues. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
of-
not all, like that list you shared, like the sheriff's department, actually Department of Health and Human Services, the juvenile court and others are not currently paying any membership dues to be part of it.
So what percentage of the 25 or the entities that do participate pay to be involved?
I believe last year we had 13 agencies paid.
13, okay. And of the agencies that are involved, everybody has do you vote? Is it a voting forum?
It's on a consensus model.
Okay,
So we don't have, it's not like this where you have a vote. It is you build consensus
okay,
to approve.
okay.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I
Roll.
think, sorry. No, think finally I would ask for our administrators' input.
We-
Do you, is this something you've seen in the other places in your network?
Yes.
Do you recommend that the county supports this or?
Yes, so most of the administrators I talk to, most of those counties who have this sort of group or something similar are supporting it at a county level. A lot of the administrators themselves go to those in addition to their commissioners. So I think we should. I mean, we have a lot of member representation on behalf of the county there. They've done good work. A lot of cool things have come out of that group. You know, the different childcare groups, the kinship and those such. It's very important that we're showing our commitment to the community, and this is a good way to show that commitment, I fully believe. And you know, for those that are kind of on the fence right now, you'll have another bite at this apple because when we get into budgeting, you'll have to decide if, you know, we're going to support the group again. Because they're not a department, so they're just not automatically on the list. So I would support doing it because of the commitment and the impact they've had on the community. And for those that aren't quite sure on voting yes today, we'd have another bite at the apple when we do budget season and we can talk through it again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You done? Sure.
Think so.
Everybody else? Roll call, please.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
No,
motion carried.
Alrighty, apologize to Mr. Malone, but if you would, sir.
I did hand out Tim Malone's latest February report that he did give to me, so it is on your desk. So he'll be able to go through that. And then also Mitch Shapiro will be on the call as well. If the group wants to hear or ask questions of Mitch as well, we can bring him into the Zoom call. As you recall, he's the consultant who's really been working on the county's behalf with Tim and various folks around the community that really have focused on not only the build out of broadband, but also we're working on a digital equity compass, as they're calling it. So take it away, Tim.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Apologize for missing the last meeting. Scheduling conflict. I forgot to have it on the calendar. Double book. So I do apologize for that. One of our limiting factors we've been struggling with since COVID is hiring qualified people. We've been hiring inexperienced and then mentoring them up, which is just a slow process. In January, we brought on Levi Trupper. He is going to be a partner in the company level. He has years of experience. He was working for Loomis in North Carolina and Virginia. managing about 120 contractors for that corporation. He's from Michigan, wanted to come back to Michigan, which I'm sure his wife Rachel was very happy about. So we spent about a 5-day period with the family, interviewed not only Levi, but his family to make sure he was a sound partner long-term. Worked out really well. So we're very happy to have him on board. With that, we're going to split the company up. Operationally, we'll have Levi focusing on the outside plant, which is working with Merit, PFN, contractors, kind of focusing on MDUs and enterprise, large projects. And Justin is going to take care of the ISP side of the business. They overlap in the middle, but his focus is going to be all the software that interface with the consumer and allow for all the regulatory reporting that's needed. He'll be with the networking, Sienna and the engineers over there, and focusing on the consumer's experience, which goes up to small business. So that'll help us grow or have the staff to grow. And we'll be adding about 4 more people this year in the trenches. So very excited about that. I've known Levi for about 2 years, putting a bug in his ear. He finally listened. So I'm grateful for that. MIHI has requested from all RDOF recipients to provide a list of addresses by census block group that they can evaluate. And their statement in the letter is interesting. They're saying that if we don't respond with specific dates that will be done, they cannot guarantee that those locations won't be left off the BEADS list. So it's that addresses the concern people have with companies like Mercury Broadband and other RDOF recipients that are slow to do construction here in Michigan, and making sure that those households aren't left behind. I thought it was a real interesting strategy. I will have our report in midweek. Has to be done by the 16th. But we're a relatively small player in the RDOF world, only about 3,000 locations. So it's already part of our network that we're building. We do continue to, and we've also submitted our 4th quarter Robin reports. There was a little bit of a twist. They wanted us to verify every household on the list. There were some errors between the location data at the federal level and the state's report. So it took us a little bit to clarify those, but everything's been submitted and got no feedback from the state yet. I think they're a bit overwhelmed. Response is slow just because they've got a lot on their plate. And we appreciate everything my high office is doing for the county and for the state in general. We do have a 2nd quarter meeting with Mercury Broadband to continue to try to figure out where they're at and see how we can help them succeed. We don't want anybody in Benzie County or any of the 10 counties we do work in left behind because a provider failed to complete their obligation. And where we can help, we will help. We're also working with Merit, been a multi-stage. They're offering us 10 gig or 100 gig wavelengths to Chicago and to Southfield as part of a build out. And next month we'll move into an architectural review, but it's kind of exciting where Merit has stepped in. A lot of it due to Benzie and the attention Benzie's getting. So we appreciate that. We've also been working with ACD right now, doing a lot of builds to a Centec from the Honor area, Inland Township area down to Thompsonville. They're also interested in helping us create redundancy and failover for Benzie County. City of Frankfort, we met with them multiple times, listened to what they were doing. Most of their DDA concerns were economic based. So they asked us to put together a fiber strategic plan, and we provided them, I think it's a 19-page report on what we think Frankfurt could do. Based on the submitting that report, we've also submitted to the chair of the DDA our thoughts on how something like that could be funded. But the idea is to get everybody on gig capable fiber throughout Frankfurt and how that impacts the totality of Benzie County being such a large employer area for Frankfurt. I do have a copy of that report if you want a hard copy, or I can email that report to you if you want. January, we submitted 10 permits to Benzie County Road Commission on their new policy of per road. And that is a trend that's happening. Missaukee County turned to that. Roscommon County turned to that. They returned 4 permits to us of the 10 we've submitted. But that is moving along well. As we add more contractors, we're going to break up all of our projects into 10 roads per township. So if we're working in Homestead Township next, we'll submit 10 roads and let the road commission manage those. As long as they don't fall behind, it should work out well. Let's see what else. Beads. Our focus has been trying to identify community anchor institutions and seeing how they're served. That seems to be a high priority in Beads. We're also trying to define unserved or underserved and quantify that based on the current BDC reporting that's due in March. We're trying to do some predictive analysis. We're also engaging those on the area of cybersecurity, make sure we have an engineer that can stamp our design as meeting the Beads requirements. We're working with the Sioux tribe in the UP on some of the tribal needs for the state of Michigan. They're a very active tribe in that process. So we've been fortunate enough to be invited to be at the table with the tribes and give our input and get feedback from them. Tribal communities have many of the same issues that rural America has. They're very much aligned with our experiences and their lacking of experience. So that's been fun. We're also working and will engage a grant assistance for Beads. It's such a big undertaking. We've been successful doing it ourselves. We don't want to risk anything when it comes to that Beads application. We're in the interview process right now of multiple grant applicants. And then March, we meet with our auditors, the final audit review for 2023. And our audited book should be available to review with Katie by end of April as part of the contract. Are there any questions?
Is there a projected price? Shouldn't even open this door, an end date, or is it always going to be something new? As far as installation,
Because of when all the installations will be done, that's by the end of 2026.
Good.
That date, we are interviewing another contracting firm, Prosperity Utility Group, I think is what they're called. PUG is the way I reference them, to bring drop crews and another construction crew. We're hoping to be sooner than 2026. It's to our advantage, get it done sooner. But it's still at least a 2.5 year, even with that resource coming on board. Get it done. But I mean, we sent out another series of postcards, try to get interest in about 1,000 homes in Benzie County for part of that. So we're doing 2 MDOT projects, US 31 and M15, 115. And the permits that we've been issued by the Road Commission in January are for Inland Township. And then we're in the process of permitting for Crystal Lake Township, north and south of M15. And by the end of the year, we should be doing construction in Homestead Township.
Tim, some of the readings that I come across suggest that the subsidies for seniors and people with have students in household, that may come to an end. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we've been notified by the FCC to send out notices to ACP recipients. We have less than a dozen on our book. It hasn't been something well used by our customer base. In 90 days, funding will be consumed. A lot of that is through abuse. One of the things the ACP program did, it allowed large providers to self-certify. So instead of, we use the federal government tell us that they're certified for it. They found that in self-certifying, there was an amazing amount of abuse that came from that, which drained the funds a lot faster than anticipated. The group we met with at the Merit Conference in October, I really like their idea, and that is to link ACP to USF. In doing that, though, USF funding would be expanded. So Google and other software companies that benefit by the internet would also pay into it. There's some pushback from the cable industry to pay into it. So that still has to be worked out. But if that does get through Congress, it's been a difficult process. That would secure ACP long. And most of the telephone system was built under USF. So it is a good funding vehicle. We just have to have more participants in it to meet the ACP. We're debating how to handle that. Robin still requires us to do a net zero. So basically, we won't get paid for those customers at all, but we're trying to figure out what the unknown is, what the MyHigh office is going to do with Robin on that one.
And I'd remind the commissioners that we're only one of 3 counties that are getting funded for this digital equity program. We're being funded. We were selected because it's believed that we're a model for rural communities, which is, I think, a real feather in our cap. Did you say that Mitch was on the line?
Mhm.
I wonder if we could speak to that just for a moment, just to bring the board up to date on what's happening with that digital equity. And maybe even explain again what it's all about. And Katie, you sit on that group too, don't you?
And yep, there's a few people who are on that group.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you, Mitch.
Okay, well, yeah, speaking to, Art's point that this digital opportunity compass pilot that we're doing is one of 3 in the state. It's really, I'll give you a little context. There's really, for the first time, there's all this money coming from the federal government. The bulk of it, of course, is going to infrastructure, but there's a pretty large, relative to what's happened in the past, amount of money going for digital equity, which to me is really to help communities make use of the connectivity that they get after, all that money gets spent for the infrastructure. So the Digital Opportunity Compass is an effort by Merit to help communities get ready to apply for funding for this purpose, understand the needs of the county, in this case, the county, the resources. And so we put together, and I give Gro Benzie a lot of the credit, Katie and perhaps other board members, for pulling that together. And we've been meeting every few weeks. I also sit in on some of the the comparable meetings for one of the other 3, which is Ingham County, where I live. And each county is doing it differently. And we brought on John Willow as an advisor, who's the president of C-Band, Community Broadband Action Network. And in fact, Pierrette from Merit and John are both at this national conference, the big national digital equity conference of the year this week in Philadelphia. So that's kind of, for the task. So the task force we created, the digital equity piece is really the longer term piece of it, because that's something, the idea there is to create, you can say, an ecosystem. In other words, how can in a financially sustainable way, and in fact, financially beneficial way, create a capacity to support the digital opportunities really related to education, job creation. Dan Barczewski has, I think, used the term, with the infrastructure in place, you'll be able to have a virtual business park, if you will. So economic development, improve healthcare. And so the process, we started the process in late October, and the next meeting is next week on the 22nd, and wrap up the meetings in late March. And one of the outputs of the process is to present the county leadership with a report looking at the needs, the resources, the potential strategies and recommendations for developing a strategy that sustainably, and that's an important piece of it, cost effectively supports the beneficial uses of the network that's hopefully will connect every location in the county. And there is funding, as I said, there's funding from the Fed, several programs through the federal government. There's actually other federal programs and state programs. And one of the things that John Willow is going to help us with, because she's connected around the whole country through her organization and has had a digital equity, digital training, I guess digital navigator is the term that they use, program that was funded by Google. Her organization was one of 18 organizations that had it. And she's going to help guide us through that process along with Merit. So we've got really two leaders in that space helping out. And Merit is doing it actually at no cost. So, that's a benefit. So does that give you a sense of it? Art, it's really a formative process. Nothing like this has ever been done before. There was never the money. And because in rural communities, the infrastructure wasn't there, what's the point of doing something like this? If people aren't connected, you can't do much. And that was very clear in the task force. And that's partly why right away at the beginning of the task force, we created a connectivity subgroup, which I'm leading, because without the connectivity, if we don't make sure we get the connectivity, digital equity and programs to support telehealth and everything, you can't really do it very well if a good chunk of the community is not connected. So we've got two tracks going on, and I'll just be another minute and then I'll shut up. We've got this connectivity subcommittee that's focused on really what is a time-intensive connectivity issue, because that's, as Tim knows well, we've got this very time compressed process that the state office, MyHigh is the acronym, has to adhere to. And so they're under a lot of time pressure. And then all the local efforts are under a lot of time pressure to follow the program that the federal government has to approve, the state program. So we're in this hurry up and wait kind of cycle. And that's where the big money is. And that's where the fundamental resource of connectivity is happening. So we created this subcommittee so we could work in a focused way. And we've got Stacy Pash from the library, Glenn from Habitat, Dan Barczewski is on it, and also Tom St. Liver, who's a seasonal resident, has been very, very helpful as a volunteer. He's, joined me in all these meetings to understand all this stuff. And so we're working on data and maps, and Tim has been very helpful. Merritt has been helpful. Networks Northwest has been helpful on that front. And then the other focus of the meeting, which is of the task force, which is unfolding more slowly, appropriately so, is on the digital opportunity side and then so I guess the commission should expect sometime in the spring, maybe by mid-year, a report on that, and it'll include a strategy, a recommended strategy on what is feasible to do, what's desirable to do. So any questions about any of that?
Mitch, I'm sorry, Bob. Really, all I wanted to stress for the commissioners and for the audience is that first, Benzie County was recognized and given this opportunity as a pilot for only 3 counties. And the second piece is it's acknowledged that you can have the connectivity, but if you don't know how to use it, and I'm thinking of things like remote schooling for colleges, telemedicine, etc. And this is a really positive thing we've done. In sitting here almost 8 years now, I don't feel like we do a great job of celebrating our successes. So I just wanted to stress that, that's all.
Thank you.
If I could, from a DEI perspective, there's been a lot of fiber networks that have been built and don't get used. People are trained in doing it, going to one provider and getting their services. With that infrastructure, you separate who provides services from who's providing that connectivity to the world. And that usually results on a very basic level for the consumer savings. Cable industry doesn't like it, but it is effective to bringing more services to the consumer. On the telehealth side, I'm not sure if I expressed the story or not, but we're working with, in Crawford County, Munson Hospital CEO. They have offered to write a paper on it, but it would allow, if providers on board over an open access type network that we're putting in, should be up by April. It would allow Munson, if there's a consumer that's on that network, whether it's our network or the Tribals network or anybody else that participates, they would be able to create a private network dynamically from the hospital to that home, of which they could then monitor or provide services. The percentage given to me by the CEO was that 70% of the services people now have to go to the hospital for could be done from home. And so that's what DEI is about. How to, if you have an infrastructure in place, how can providers work with service providers to make the availability of new services through that infrastructure easier and faster, and then hopefully cheaper, for everybody involved. So it's quite a broad visionary effort going on that every day there's another aha moment. Start adding it to your list. And Benzie County is in the center of that for the state of Michigan.
Yeah, I would like to sort of piggyback on what Tim said, is that the combination of the Digital Opportunity Compass effort with the open access network that Cherry Capital is deploying is really pretty unique. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's unique in the state. It's perhaps even unique in the country, and that fact that it's happening in a rural community. So Art, I think you really did hit it, that the combination of what's going on here, as much as sometimes it's a struggle because of the process that we all have to adhere to, I think we're really breaking new ground, and it's very exciting to be part of it. And I think it's been a pleasure working with Tim. I think that makes a huge difference to have a service provider that is cooperative, transparent, creative, and deploying the kind of network that allows the kinds of things that Tim just gave one example of. So yeah, I guess it is a good time to pat yourselves on the back for navigating to this point.
AT&T we used to.
One question, Tim.
Yeah.
I thought I heard you say hard enough had to be done by 26. I thought they had till 28.
We have 27, November of 27. It depended on when your funding started, and ours started November 23rd of 2021. But we have to be completed by 2027. And we're doing really well. We passed first federal audit on that, hit our 20% objective, freed up some funds for us. There was some liability that we had.
But
Now our next goal is 40%.
I know Mercury, and you've been through that, so I,
At least they are talking. Mercury Broadband is returning my phone calls, and we're having substantive
It's a snap.
conversations. So, they've got a lot. I mean, personally, I think they're overextended, but I want to speak for them. They seem very positive about it.
they have to release it, correct? Is that how that works?
Well,
If they do it?
if they don't release it before the BEADS map is published, then if they forfeit, and the penalties are pretty small, which the FCC would increase the penalties, then those communities will be left out. In case of Benzie County, that would be the vast majority of,
I think you had it down there, Blaine Gilmore
Blaine,
and
yeah,
somebody else.
Blaine, and then Gilmore's kind of in the middle of all the
Mhm.
efforts.
Right.
But, I know it, again, we're gonna try to have a strategy to figure out how to step in if that happens. But, it'd be best to get some assistance from the state if we can.
Appreciate all you're doing.
Anybody else have any questions for Tim? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
All right, let's take a short break and be back to following on. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it-
About the staff, you know. All set? We're back in session. Brings us to item A, adopt a resolution approving the hazard mitigation plan.
So I do have Rebecca Hubers here in the audience who would best be able to answer questions because this has been one of her tasks over the last couple of years. But what's in front of you today is a resolution for adoption, which authorizes the adoption of the hazard mitigation plan. You adopted one in the past that was a bit similar, but this one's a little more beefed up. But I will let Becky take it away.
Commissioner Worsakki wanted me to start with page 1 of 340 pages of the hazard
Please.
mitigation.
Yes.
347 is where you can start.
Okay, yeah, the first one's just the cover page. The Benzie Local Emergency Planning Committee and the local planning team have been working diligently for the last couple of years. Mostly the delay is because of it's a FEMA requirement. FEMA, just like us, had to deal with COVID and things like that. So we're delayed. The hazard mitigation plan, for the simplest of forms, is a checkbox that is required if we have to ask them for money that has to do with any hazard, natural hazards. Benzie County has used the natural hazard mitigation monies one time to purchase a property near the outlet that was constantly flooding. We purchased a property there and removed the home and made that just wetland for the most part, instead of having a person make constant flooding claims on their property. So that was one instance when our water levels were high. I was concerned that we would probably need that in the Blaine Township area where the herring lakes were coming up pretty high. Obviously, the water's receded since then, so there's always an opportunity, but it's no cost. There was, it's been a while. But like 3 budgets ago, you did allocate $11,000, and that was our 10% of this grant to make this plan happen. And over the last couple of years, I was able to make sure that we had enough in-kind donations to cover that. So it was of no cost to Benzie County because of the work that was done by township officials and board and meeting committee members and all that. So we actually did not have to pay that out of pocket. We were able to match it in kind. So it's really kind of a no-brainer. We kind of have to do it, and there's no cost. It's a checkbox in case we ever need it in the future, which is most of my job, which is planning for disasters that we hope never happen.
Good.
And at this point, the plan's done. It's
Yeah,
just
the
a matter of
plans and
adopting it.
It's listed on our website. I've tried to give as many links as possible, but if you go to the benzico.gov, go to the emergency management page, scroll down to the 2023 draft, we're calling it, because we were pretty much done with it in 2023. You can see the entire 348 pages. And then below that is the the 2015 draft, which was the one previously set forth by the county. So it's replacing the 2015 draft.
Since I already read those 350 pages
yeah.
and studied it, I want to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners.
Bridge to sell you.
Okay, I lied. But I want to make the motion, the Board of Commissioners adopts resolution 2024-08, authorizing the adoption of the 2023 Benzie County, Michigan Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan 5-year update.
Seeing how I actually did read the whole thing, because I was very
All
involved.
348.
I was very involved with it at the LPC and LAPC meetings. I'll second that motion.
Motion and support. Discussion?
Just a little bit. It was brought up at Thompsonville last night. They haven't adopted it yet. But I understand Blaine hasn't adopted it either.
Blaine did not adopt the 2015 draft. I just sent out on, I think it was Monday, maybe it was Friday, to all of your local communities for local adoption. It would be nice if they all adopted it. It would help check that box in their communities as well. According to, if you read the very first letter from the state and from FEMA, that says that adoption is what makes those checkboxes allowable in each community. The county has a kind of an umbrella, but then we layer it down depending on if
it's a local state of emergency just in a township versus the whole county and that type of thing. So in the past, I did send, Frank Post had kept a spreadsheet of who adopted the 2015 plan. And Blaine was one that never adopted it. I don't believe Thompsonville did either. So I sent that list only to let them know if they had to go and look up their previous resolutions at their township level or not.
Hopefully they will.
I hope so. Hopefully it was because I made the visits that I did and I told them in my last letter, I will gladly make another visit if they need more information about it, but every community was visited and, included in anything that they wanted in that plan.
Thank you.
Okay, have a motion and support. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of Tim who did do it.
Oh, come on.
Item B, discussion regarding 3 additional requests for opioid related funding.
So as you'll recall, a few meetings ago, we were able to get narrowed down and allocate some of our opioid dollars for programming here in the county. We still have some opioid dollars left and we will be receiving more. We now have 3 additional requests in front of us. One from the courts, one from Elmira Township, and one that's internal that myself and the school resource officers have been working on. So I'll go last for the simple fact that I'm here no matter what, but we do have the judge here as well as the Elmira Township Chief. So whoever would like to start, they can go over their requests, answer any questions that this board may have. And then we can go from there.
Katie, before we start, how much funding do we have left currently this year? Roughly.
A lot. What was it? It was, yeah, it was 42. Yeah, it's over 40, close to 50, because I think we just got another chunk in the other day, actually. Hard to keep track of. So at least 40, closer to 50.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with this. Chip and Commissioner Markey were both working diligently to get something in place for the opioid dollars in district court. Chip was gonna present today, but apparently he's on vacation, so here I am. The request is for $4,465 for substance abuse assessments, testing and monitoring programs. The monitoring programs are the important public safety issue matters right up front. Is what's happening is I get these people coming in with meth or fentanyl, and I'm ordering 3 days of drug testing a week. A lot of these people can't afford it, or at least they say they can't, and they don't show up, so this will guarantee that at least they have the funding to do that, so the public safety is being covered. And then assessments would be if they plead out or are convicted at district court, trying to find the programs appropriate for their specific needs. I will say this, we're also working with Chip and Commissioner Markey on the liquor tax dollars for programs related specifically to alcohol. But these are 2 separate programs. What will need to happen, and Michelle, I don't know if they've had your office working on it yet. Chip was gonna have specific line items created so that my office can just build the appropriate line item. But ultimately, you and Kelly will be doing 2 line items once we seek and get approval for the liquor tax dollars, because they have to be separate line items. Any questions?
And it fits the criteria, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I have to rely on Chip for that, so.
So based on the conversations that I've had with Chip on this program, yes, it meets the criteria of what would be allowed to spend those opioid dollars on. And the way he indicated to me is this would really ultimately supplemental. So there is some funding, but this would be supplemental to close that gap so that those folks, you know, we're giving them all the tools necessary to meet the demands of the courts for these individuals.
I see there's no motions here. Are we looking to just discuss this today and
It's really,
vote on it later?
it's really up to the Board of Commissioners. You guys could act today, or you could act at the next meeting. It's your call.
I'll make
I
the
left that
motion.
open to you.
I'll make the motion to give John the money.
Second
Just
that.
can't do that, right, Judge?
Um,
4,600.
Allocating it to district court, just leave it.
I know he's already running for office again. He could use it for something else. I didn't say that. I lost it already. $4,465 from the opioid settlement,
The district court.
the district court. Pretty sure Tammy had all.
Did somebody support that?
I did.
Thank you, Rhonda. Motion and support?
I do have a question.
Yep.
It's understood that this is a one-time event, and if they want additional money for this, it's a competitive thing and it'll come back next time.
Absolutely, especially too, because as we've talked about before, the way the opioid dollars are coming,
Yeah.
we don't exactly know how much and when. It's very weird. So to commit multi-years, well, we might not have the same amount of money next year. So these are all one-time funding, and then we'll talk about it again next year.
That applies to all the requests.
Mhm.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C, approve budget amendment. of-
No.
Oh, yeah. two
So we
more to
have
talk.
the Elmira Fire and EMS Chief here to go over his request, which is also in the packet.
Sorry.
We're gonna skip you, Brad.
I stopped it.
It's good morning. I just wanted to double check. So, yeah, I talked with Commissioner Janat, and basically he informed us about this opiate money. And so I put in a request for $6,900 for Elmira Township. But as part of this is basically to go, when we start looking at the opiate problem, it's really the police and fire are the first response to dealing with this. We have to have airway training continuously based on protecting the people airway, because most of the time they've stopped breathing. Also, the one thing we want to be able to do is provide training for our personnel, provide training for the community, and then really anybody else who needs it. Currently, we provide or do joint training with Inland on a regular basis. We do other training as well. I've come here and taught at the here in this room for the County Chiefs Association. So basically, we want to be able to do CPR training and Narcan training. Right now, they give a lot of Narcan out. Just here's your Narcan. I built a program back that I've taught a lot of sheriff's departments down south, and they don't really explain to the average citizen what happens when you take people out of those, especially when you start mixing any type of opiates with meth, with cocaine, with crack, anything like that. They basically, you eliminate the opiate and you may be waking up someone who's very agitated with you and basically on stimulants that you have to deal with. So that's kind of the thing that the community outreach as far as giving Narcan goes, that they don't educate people. And I built a whole program on that. Also, the fact that like the airway becomes a serious problem. If you've given them Narcan and they start coming around, there's a good chance they're going to vomit, that you have to turn around and get in recovery position and make sure that they keep their airway open. That's part of teaching the community CPR and Narcan administration. They go hand in hand. Really, most saves are done by early response for fire and EMS and police, and really the citizen. And when we start looking at how we turn around and address this public safety issue on a regional area, is those are the two main things. So part of this is to basically train one additional CPR instructor. We have one currently. And with that, excuse me, with that, it limits the size of the class that we can teach, because they have to have so many instructors per practical evolutions. Then it also gets put in there for a request for training mannequins, updated training mannequins to make sure it's being done properly. And then an airway head. And the airway head's all rubberized, so we actually have simulated Narcan administration that we can actually have people turn around and practice doing the administration without damaging the CPR heads. They don't like water, but the airway head is fine for that. So those are the items that we'd be looking for. And again, this would not kind of start focused on Elmira Township, but also really anybody. And we will reach out, post a class when we're going to be doing it, and try to bring the community in, because in the end, to deal with this issue, it has to be a community-wide response. So, because people find people not breathing first, and they have to do the right things right from the get-go, just even before EMS and law enforcement get there. Any questions for me?
You got, go ahead.
So in general, who are you saying, how do you get people to go through the additional training?
Well, first, the EMS side,
Yes.
we have to do that, but
Sure.
then we would be doing community outreach through churches, through,
Okay.
we have a pretty active Facebook account, but
Okay.
then we would turn around if we're going to be doing it here at the county, or somebody wants it, say, hey, you know, we need it down in Thompsonville. I'd reach out to Jim Frankie and say, okay, how can we reach out to your community, and basically put out information for them to try and draw people in to do that type of training.
And how have the numbers been for that?
Well, right now we haven't done it, other than we've done community training, and we typically, just in Elmira, we have to borrow all the equipment and everything else, so we're limited on when we can do it. But typically we do anywhere from 50 to 70 plus people a year in CPR training.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I was just looking at the equipment cost, because that's about 99% of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm guessing that the CPR AEDs are those little red boxes.
The CPR is a 4-pack of CPR mannequins, and then an AED simulator. So if there is a AED, you pull that, and basically we go through everything with basic CPR training, American Heart certified.
Oh,
So it's
no.
like those, but it's a fake one. Well, I mean, it's
Well,
a
that's a good price
simulator.
for
It's
the fake one.
it's not a
It's,
real
yeah,
one.
it's a
It's the bigger
yeah, it's not a
cost.
real one, because we'd be buying that one for all the rigs if we
Yeah.
needed
Okay,
to.
all right.
The other advantage, or the other thing that I would put out to the commissioners, is that Elmira Township was willing to bear the cost of any of the instructors. So once this stuff is purchased, we're not asking for additional money and everything else. I'm going to go ahead from the fire department side, pay for that instructor to be there. And, you know, no matter where it's at, even if it's here in the county, at the county seat, if it's in Thompsonville, if it's in Inland, it doesn't matter. We'll pick that up for our instructors and make sure that they're there.
Because Art should have made it clear this is a one-time deal.
Yep.
Are we looking at all the other fire departments coming in asking for a similar request?
Well, the way he's describing it is he would then partner, and basically buying the equipment would be for all the departments to
So that
utilize.
all the training would go through them. So
I can
Frank-
talk to this.
Yeah.
At the chiefs meeting, we actually talked about this.
Mhm.
And Brad said he would definitely offer up the training to all the other fire departments. So
Yeah.
Elmira would be the people
Recipient.
taking care of the equipment and the instructors, but they would reach out to all the other fire departments. We've already talked about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes it a little clearer for me.
I'm assuming he's reached out to the sheriff's office as well.
They just, actually, I was going to, and one of their deputies was taking their Narcan training on a computer that I was like, okay. But again, the sheriff's department, if we have the ability to teach CPR, you guys have to be renewed periodically. So with having 2 instructors and all the equipment, we can come in here and basically knocked that out. I mean, I did all of Ingham County and their corrections deputies in a two-day span, teaching the CPR and then the Narcan administration and actually stop the bleed. So-
Having taken a class that Brad's taught, I must say he does a fantastic job with instruction.
And I'd like to add, I'm not sure how this is gonna be relevant, but bear with me. You know, we look a lot for collaboration throughout the county. Most of us probably don't know, but Elmira Township, Brad specifically, they're storing the airboat and also providing the staff, so there's a more immediate response if there's need be. So he's looking for ways to collaborate, and I don't believe there's any monetary exchange on that, right?
No,
Yeah.
I knew.
other than, you know, being able to respond, you know, that's all I care about is are we able to help out the county sheriff's department? And are we able to help out our citizens as well and have a quick, timely response, especially in a rescue for the airboat is the example.
And I just want to stress that you've got that level of collaboration with the county.
Well, I'd make the motion that we do fund this project, one time with opioid dollars in the amount of $6,900 to Elmira Township Fire and EMS.
Janad supports.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, and I will keep you updated on as soon as we get the stuff and able to do a class, because all of you will be invited to attend if you don't have CPR and Narcan training.
Well, we'd appreciate
Yeah.
a report or an update of some sort.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
And I would recommend the Narcan training because Brad is right. You give Narcan to somebody, you have no idea how they're gonna be when they come out.
This was education.
I've given Narcan probably, I mean, I'm just gonna guess, well over 100 times.
Oh.
And you end up in some not so pleasant situations after you give it. Let's just put it that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next Chief.
Yours already.
Next request is for the school and youth resource officer.
So I've heard from folks on this body as well as folks around the county about, you know, we really haven't given any money that's truly impacting the youth in our county. And so Deputy Mull and I have chatted quite a few times about, you know, how could we do that? And we found a speaker, Tony Hoffman, who would be willing to come to Benzie County and do 2 assembly type groups with the 2 schools to really have a firsthand motivational, you know, prevention type speaking to the kids. We talked about, you know, this would be more appropriate for the middle school and high school kids. You know, little kids are much different in how you approach them. Tony Hoffman is very well renowned. He's a TED Talk individual. He has firsthand knowledge of, you know, what it means to be addicted to opioids and such. And he's also very, I guess, trendy with the youth in our country because he's younger, he's catchy, he's, you know, cool, and so energetic. And so kids really take to him really well based on what we've read as far as reviews go for his speakings. And so we've reached out to both the schools. Both the schools have an April timeline that we're working on, you know, a day or 2 days that we could put together to have him come. He has availability in April, so he's excited and eager to come as long as we can, you know, move forward with this. So Tony Hoffman, I put his web link on there because really I thought it was best to go to his website to really see him and his speakings and such. And so total, it would be $9,200. That covers everything. That would be 2 assemblies, one at Frankfurt, one at Benzie. That's his travel and, you know, all the things. So it'd be $9,200 total. And we envision this for the middle and high school kids.
You ready?
Yeah.
I thought you got $17,000 from that marijuana.
So actually, I haven't received that money yet, and marijuana is different than opioids. So that
would
money
that
has
would
to be
training
specific.
too, so I'm a little confused as to why we're not focusing on using.
Because that is very specific to marijuana. So the state is very specific in
I thought it
that
was a
money.
Gateway drug, it got you into everything else.
So as you know, the color of the money changes depending on where it comes and who gives it to you and what application it falls under. That color of that money is green. I guess for lack of a better word. There's a funny.
It smells funny, yeah.
So that money is very specific to things that are falling within the different acts that we are, different laws we have in Michigan specific to marijuana. This would be specific to the opioid dollars. I also haven't received confirmation from the state that when we're going to get that money and, you know, those sorts of things. So we may not even see that money until this summer. So the timing there is bad as well.
Okay, I just popped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie, I did go to his website. He looks like a pretty credible individual. But how come we didn't put this group through the same process as required by the first two presenters where they had to fill out the forms and?
This was total internal. This was me and our SRO. We've been working on this behind the scenes, even finding a speaker that would be even willing. So that's, I kind of didn't do that piece of it because I didn't even know if this is where the board wanted to lead. So we can go through and do that. We just haven't, because we haven't gotten that far down that process.
I'm not so sure that, you know, I'd have you go through the hoops on this one, but for the future, you know, if we're going to require other groups to have to submit that documentation, all groups should have to submit it.
Okay, I'll let the judge know as well.
Well, I'll leave that to the chair, but it's about equitability.
No, I understand completely. And I'll let district court know that as well, specifically on that, but we've just been working on this internally. The school wasn't involved in this, so we approached the schools about this idea specifically too.
And I appreciate your efforts. We did identify that we wanted to have an impact in prevention and the kids in the community. So I think it's valuable. And I'd like to make the motion that we approve the opioid request for Tony Hoffman, speaker for Benzie and Frankfurt schools in the amount of $9,200.
Support Cunningham.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
I also didn't expect you guys to take action today, so thank you.
Thank you.
Surprise, surprise,
Push it
surprise.
off.
Item C, approve budget amendment for $3,000 for the treasurer's office.
So as all of you have heard, the committee that is formed to make the appointment for the interim county treasurer has been made. Kelly Long will be our county treasurer starting March 1st. She will have a swearing in ceremony that morning at 8:30, and I invite everyone to attend that. So with the transition, and similar to what we did with Register of Deeds, we're trying to bring somebody on a little sooner, just give them a couple extra weeks of transition time. And so Kelly Long has selected her chief deputy, Suzanne Mills, who currently serves as the sheriff's assistant, has been selected to serve as the chief deputy. And so what this budget amendment would do is allow for her to start down here that Tuesday after President's Day. Kind of gives a couple week transition when Shelley's still here, giving some of that knowledge, give Kelly some, you know, leeway in that 2 weeks. And so that's what this request is for, is to move an additional $3,000 because those are obviously two different sets of money. So while she's already a county employee, we can't just take from the sheriff's office. And so that's why I would be adding $3,000 to the treasurer's office so that she could start in that office that Tuesday after President's Day.
These type of initiatives should be routine all the time. I'd like to have seen us actually have acted on this at a previous meeting, so they could have come in sooner. But I'm gonna make the motion that the board approves the budget adjustment, in the amount of $3,000 for wages for the treasurer's office from contingency.
Support.
This allows for that 2 weeks to the sheriff's office. So that's why the timing is what it is.
Thanks. Okay, motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
So just to move this along, I'm gonna move that we accept the recommendation for Dawn only to be appointed to the jury board.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So move.
On to me.
Yes.
Great. Things are humming along really well in administration. We're working through a lot of things right now. As many of you know, parole and probation renovation, which you have approved, has started. They have worked very diligently to demo down there. You're welcome to peek through the window to see that, but please don't enter. It is a construction site. You need a hard hat and steel toe boots. But it has started. It's moving right along. And so everybody's really, really excited about that renovation happening. I did speak at the Chamber Summit last Friday. That went really, really well. I gave some updates on what the county has been doing over the last year and some of the things we'll be looking at over the next year. And so that went really, really well. Another plug for all the great things we've done in our community with ARPA dollars and things like that. We have published for the Tax Advisory Committee. So if you know anybody out there who's interested in that committee, this board does make an appointment of somebody of the community. So that will be in the Record Patriot this week and next week. It's already online, just advertising for that position. As a reminder, they cannot be connected to local government. So no sisters, cousins, husbands, wives of people who serve on a township or county official capacity. So it leaves about 3.5 people in Benzie, is my understanding. But if you can find those 3.5 people, please ask them if they're interested. So once we get some applications for that, we'll bring it forward to all of you for interviews and a selection from there. The township supervisors have chosen Jason Barnard to serve as their representative on that committee. So we're closing in on all of those members. We have reached out to the ISD asking for somebody from their group because it can be either the superintendent or a representative. So I'm waiting to hear as to who they're going to put forward on that committee. Once that committee is fully formed, within 10 days, they must hold their first meeting. So we'll get started on that and see where it goes. Other than that, things are, like I said, humming in the office. Jackie will have some HR updates. So I don't want to take that thunder from her. But is there any questions?
How many so far do we have on that committee?
So we have the judge's appointment.
Right here, lady.
Yep, Mandy. And then we have the township appointment, which is Jason Barnhard. And then that's it.
That's it.
So,
okay.
we'll wait for that community member. There'll be an ISD member or representative. And then, there's the chair of the finance committee, which we as a whole serve as the finance committee, which by default, means the chair of the board. However, I did touch base with Matt, and Matt said that this body can appoint a representative as well. It doesn't have to be just Bob.
Bob
so-
can appoint a representative of the board can.
The board can, what we will end up doing is we'll consider an amendment to our resolution, which would say the chair of the finance committee or their representative. So if for some reason Bob wasn't able to, be on that committee, or if this board thought somebody else should serve on that committee, there is that opportunity to make that change. And then finally, the county treasurer also serves on that committee. And so given the timing of how things are working out, Kelly will serve on that committee as well.
When the last one's appointed, that's when the 10 days start.
Yep. So when it's fully formed, within 10 days, you have to have that first meeting. And then we'll meet until we come to some sort of resolution. When I was meeting with the township supervisors, we talked about a lot of things, and a lot of ways to approach this and how not to approach it. And I've made it clear to them that, this committee may come back to this board and say, no, they have that right. And so they understand that they really have that right to come to this board to say yes, no, or some. And so that's their marching orders when they do start meeting and then come to you.
Whatever they bring forward is a recommendation, correct?
Yep. And then
Final decision is this board.
ultimately, yep, the final decision would fall upon this board based on their recommendation.
Got one more question for you.
Yep.
How do I get to MSU down there then? On a hard hat.
Oh, you can walk down the hallway. Just
Oh,
don't go
okay,
inside
okay.
parole and probation.
Okay, thank you.
But they're doing great work down there and people are very excited.
Anybody else? Correspondence for your reading pleasures? Brings us to our final public comment.
I'm Annie Browning from the village of Beulah, and I just thought I'd get up here because I haven't been up here in a while, and I appreciate the things that you're doing. Really, I do, because I have experience doing that sort of thing in the village level. So I was gonna kind of also share what I've been working on from the village, or what I've been thinking about from the village perspective. And that is, I got the spoils finally cleared from the stormwater settling drain, very different than sewer and water. It's stormwater, just stormwater that runs off 31. Those spoils got removed after a big, long process with me finding people that would bid on it. So that was a real process. One of the challenges of village, working in local municipal government. And then I wanted to comment on, notes here. The planning commission, that's another thing that I'm really excited to be involved in. I'm sure I've mentioned it with you before, but for the village of Beulah, and I know that recently the county level planning commission got removed, so we're still doing it at the village levels, and I don't know how the process is gonna take place, how it's integrated, but the village of Beulah is looking to update our master plan the next couple of months. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. What else is going with it? Oh, also related to that, I was pleased to be involved in a group that was getting together to try and get our arms around, to put it that way, protecting Crystal Lake, maintaining the health of Crystal Lake. There's a few different groups, and this one is just a municipal group. So it's Village of Beulah, Village of Benzonia, and Benzonia Township, Lake Township, I think is involved also. Anyway, so it's meant to include all of those municipalities, so we can have some standards for how what the limits are gonna be for emptying things into Crystal Lake, or, setbacks and things like that. We're trying to get our arms around it so that we can have some standards. So it's a whole big process. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today. So thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Thanks, Annie.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Well, otherwise. we're
I just-
going.
I just have a quick question. It was talked about this morning about moving the 130 up. Is that not happening?
I believe it is happening.
Okay, I just
So,
wanted to make sure
and
because
I was
Network
going to
Northwest was coming early.
Say that right before we adjourn.
Okay.
We're gonna take a short break and be back at 11:25 for the afternoon meeting.
Perfect.
Gives me time to read that hazardous mitigation.